I'm Andy, and I've been drawing since 2021, but for most of the last year, I barely drew at all. Inspired by fellow creators, I devised a solution. A 90-day challenge, drawing every single day in order to restore the habit, rebuild lost skill, and push to see how much I really could improve in 3 months. Did I actually draw every day? How much did I improve? To start the challenge, I kicked off with this drawing of Byleth from imagination. I was really struggling to pull her features or likeness from my memory, so on day 2 I took the same drawing but redrew her head while looking at reference. I wasn't satisfied with these initial drawings, so for the next 3 days, I studied stylized faces from other artists. I really wanted to improve my observation skills, so I took the time and tried to nail the proportions and really understand how the head was constructed. On day 6, I did an original sketch of Celica from Fire Emblem, and this felt like an early sign that some of the knowledge was starting to stick. At the very least, the faces that I drew started to feel a little bit more intentionally constructed. By the end of the first week, I started tackling some anatomy. In the past, I always avoided tough subjects like hands and feet, so this time I just said YOLO and took it straight on. Once I had a little bit of that in my system, I immediately challenged myself to apply this knowledge. So on days 9 and 10, you can see the progression in yet another Byleth sketch. After that, I worked on this sketch of Momo Ayase. At the time, I was genuinely proud of it, especially because I committed to clean line art, which is something that I've avoided since the first day that I started drawing. But once I finished the piece, I had an immediate realization. I really need to learn color. I proceeded not to do that. Well, not yet at least. It's coming later in the challenge. Ah, fuck. For the first couple weeks, I completely let my posture get out of check, and eventually it caught up to me. Neck pain hit me so hard that I could barely sit at my desk for more than a few minutes. This didn't even clear up until around day 30, so I lost a good amount of time on it. Looking back at Act 1, there's 2 things to note. Firstly, my physical process wasn't sustainable, but secondly, and on the positive, it really felt like my fundamentals were coming back to me very quickly. Going into Act 2, I felt confident. But if I wanted real results from this challenge, I had to lock in and get smarter. Act 2 started strong with a dynamic sketch idea. I wanted to draw a character charging into battle, so I used a reference of a rollerblader to capture the gesture for it, and I was pleasantly surprised with how it turned out. But I never pushed it past this phase, which for now is a reoccurring theme. I stayed in study mode for a few days and then I pivoted back into an original piece. I drew Rhea from Fire Emblem and spent some time refining her. Around here though, I felt like I was drifting again. I was definitely making drawings and showing up every day, but even if they sometimes came out decent, it just felt like a dice roll. So on day 36, I finally decided to change that. I started using Medzmap, a digital painting course created by fellow creator Ahmed Alduri. With this newfound structure, my focus totally shifted. I did some simple shapes with value, color hue cubes, and even this painting of an apple. Working with color and finally learning it was super fun. As soon as I got the tiniest hold on color theory, I got excited and tried injecting it into my Rhea sketch. Even in this unfinished state, seeing my drawings come to life with color really gave me a clear vision on how I wanted to improve my art in the future. The next day, I started applying my own color study outside of Medzmap, so I tackled this Zelda painting, and I had no idea how to approach the hair. I made a valiant effort, but it fizzled out due to that roadblock. Somehow, against all odds, the very next morning, I hit the Byleth portrait. This piece had me in the most potent flow state that I felt during the entire challenge. Later in Act 2, I redrew Amber from Genshin Impact. And the cool part is that I've actually redrawn her in 2022 and 2023 as well. So it's a really good checkpoint to see where my art skills are at. Stay tuned for Act 3 though. I actually refined this piece a little bit further. Around day 53, the fundamental of composition started to be a topic on my mind. So I started doing these value studies to learn how to lead viewers' eyes through a piece. I didn't stick with these exercises too long, but during the remaining days of Act 2, my daily warm-ups commonly included doing 5-minute comp studies. Day 56 was my first time ever drawing an Asaro head, and if you haven't tried drawing one, I seriously recommend it. Including Asaro heads in my daily warm-ups, especially after spending some time on intuitive perspective, really started to level up my face drawing game. On day 57, I attempted this high-angle pose, as well as a fan art redraw of Sandrone from Genshin Impact. I think that's how you say her name. Nearing the end of Act 2, I did another Byleth piece. The shape design feels really solid actually, but since it's only a sketch, I never fully solved some of the issues with it. It was around this time that I started realizing that my art could probably look a lot more impressive if I started inputting some more varied scenarios and poses. Maybe that'll be a future challenge. And to finally wrap up day 60, I did another appeal study. This time it was Dia from Genshin Impact. Act 2 was a huge turning point for me. I finally reintroduced some structured practice to my art, got real momentum with form, perspective, and even color for a little while. But I still struggled to take pieces beyond just messy sketches. So going into this final stretch, was I finally going to be able to break that pattern? Act 3 didn't kick in immediately, so while I was still showing up most days for warm-ups, I didn't get back to doing trackable pieces until day 67. I decided to reopen the Amber sketch from Act 2. Even back around day 50, I felt like I could have pushed this sketch a bit further. After all the face studies since then, I was way better equipped this time, and I think the results speak for themselves. One thing that really progressed in this final act was my Asaro heads. My redraws aren't perfect, but that's not the point. Just getting more aware of the planes of the face, and translating even a bit of that into my own work made a noticeable difference. On day 70, I did another portrait sketch of Byleth. It's not the strongest piece for likeness, but the structure felt solid, and some of the subtle depth reads pretty well. My main critique with this one is that my style just feels really fluid. Maybe it's not as bad as I think, I don't know, maybe leave a comment, but it's really difficult for me to consistently replicate a certain look. So sometimes I get a Byleth like this, and sometimes it's closer to day 10, 39, or 59. A few days later, I shifted into drawing animals. So I started with a few pages of gesture drawings, and by the end of the session, I was sketching this horse. The subtle perspective in the 3D form of the body is definitely something I would have struggled with in Act 1, but now it felt pretty easy. Medieval fantasy is a genre that I'm a huge fan of, so learning how to draw horses is something I'll definitely dive into with a video at some point. Arriving at day 84, I slowly started thinking about what day 90 would entail. I definitely didn't want to end the challenge with a boring study or a page of anatomy, so while I crafted the ideas in my head, I did 2 more appeal studies. Like usual, I really tried my best to take these slow and continually measure the proportions, so my ability to spot issues in my own work would get better. Around this time, the challenge was nearly complete. With only 2 days left, I realized it was time to start working on the final piece of the challenge. Initially, this is the sketch that came out, and I wasn't happy with it. As day 88 came and went, I started doubting that I was going to finish the challenge off in a satisfying way. For the first time in 50 days, I hit what felt like another flow state. I started my morning immediately with a new sketch for the final piece. And this was the thing that proved to me that day 39 wasn't just a fluke. I was starting to unconsciously tap into the skills that I'd been practicing since day 1 of the challenge. Appealing proportions, head construction, form, and so much more. On day 90, color finally came back into the challenge as well. I further refined the drawing and added color to the face, eyes, and hair. Even though my work isn't yet pro level, or anywhere close to pro level, I think you can really see the jump from day 1 to day 90. Conveniently, I started the challenge and ended the challenge with the same character, so it's pretty easy to see where the practice paid off. A lot of this came from not avoiding the boring stuff. Gesture, Asaro heads, perspective, and much more. I was hitting a lot of these subjects in warm-ups before my main drawings, and over time, those fundamentals started showing up automatically in my actual pieces. Finishing pieces is still a major boss fight for me. The structure is there now, but pushing a piece from 80% to 100% is something that I'll be tackling very, very soon. Thanks for reaching the end of my 90-day art challenge. Let's do a final breakdown before we finish off the video. How many days did I end up drawing? I ended up drawing 72 out of 90 days, with the biggest time loss being in Act 1. What were the biggest improvements, and what still needs work? Face structure, proportions, and line confidence are the 3 biggest improvements in my art. But dynamic posing, storytelling, and finishing pieces is definitely something that still needs work. If you want to see the next challenge, please consider subscribing.